Hi there, I'm Ebony Todd. I'm a managing partner of Jackson Todd Lambert, PLLC, a business, church, and nonprofit law firm in Central Texas. I'm coming tonight to talk to you a little bit about LLCs. So the point of this video is to give you 8 questions to consider when you're determining whether or not an LLC is good for you. I like to start out with a brief disclaimer that although I am an attorney and I'm giving legal information, do not consider this legal advice. Instead, be empowered and encouraged to seek the legal advice of a competent professional as a result of this message. So let's start out with what exactly is an LLC? So an LLC is a company that it stands for limited liability company, and it's a company that is a hybrid of sole proprietorship and corporation. So you get some of the benefits of being a sole proprietor or a partnership in that you get to choose your taxation, you have an opportunity to do business on a smaller level, like a mom and pop shop level with the sole proprietor partnership and or LLC. And there's little to no reporting required with LLCs, or much less maybe than corporations. But the benefits that you receive from the corporation side is that you get the credibility, and with a certificate of filing, you also reserve your name in the state that you live in. And we all want to make sure that our name isn't used by another entity. So when deciding whether or not you need an LLC, you want to consider a series of questions. I'm going to tell you about 4, but my beautiful business partner, Shinia, will give you the other 4 in a separate video called Part 2. Number 1, how much money are you making or planning to make with the business? I want you to think on this, because if you are planning to have just a side hustle where you make a couple of grand in a year, you may not need an LLC. You may just do a DBA or doing business as. In Texas, we have to have an assumed name certificate, same thing. But with an LLC, if you believe that you're going to make several $1,000s, you would be able to protect that asset and keep it separate from your personal assets. We, of course, all want to protect our assets from liability from creditors. And so LLCs give you that added protection, that asset protection that you need to make sure that your business and personal assets remain separate. So you may want to consider it if you're planning to make a good amount of money with your business. Another question you can ask yourself is if you intend to bring on investors. Well, whether or not you intend to bring on investors, you can have an LLC. Don't get me wrong with what I'm about to say. But what I want you to keep in mind is that with LLCs, there's different taxations, different taxation treatment that may affect your ability to encourage investors to come on board. What I mean by that is that with an LLC, you have pass-through taxation or S-corp taxation that you can elect. Normally, if you just go in, just start an LLC from scratch, you're going to have pass-through taxation. With pass-through taxation, every dime that your company makes is reported on your taxes, and that goes for any investor as well. Now, mind you, it doesn't mean that you made every dime that your company made, but it's a little bit more complicated for investors, and for that reason, some investors don't like it. Now, corporations, on the other hand, can have C corporation status, naturally have corporation status with the IRS, and then it's totally separate. They're given, investors are only taxed for the distributions that they receive, and it's way more cleaner for them. So you may want to consider a corporation if you're planning on having investors, but you don't have to. Something to consider to speak with an accountant and or a business attorney about. Third question, How many owners or investors do you intend to have? Now, this may be connected, but if you're going to have multiple owners and or investors, I definitely recommend that you do something to protect yourself from the creditors of the other individuals that you go into business with. If you're a sole proprietor or a partnership, your business dealings are still open to liability for anyone that is considered an owner or investor because an investor owner of the company. So we don't want that to happen where some creditor comes and takes assets from the business because you haven't separated yourself from the business by having an LLC or a corporation. But in this case, we're talking about LLCs. So we'll say, make sure you have an LLC in that case. But it's not a requirement. You definitely want to consider it with the help of a business attorney. Your fourth and final question for this video is, what are the risks involved in your industry? If you're in a risky industry, I'm going to encourage you, again, to separate yourself from liability of the company. You want to make sure that your assets are protected from the company's risky business. So if you now have a skydiving business, the last thing you want is for someone to sue and try their hardest to touch your personal assets if you don't have a lot of business assets that they can get to, and to try to pay the debts that way. Now, mind you, you should have a really tight disclaimer and waiver. If you have a skydiving business, that will help tremendously. But people can sue and legal fees can mount up. So we want to encourage you in that case to have a business that separates your personal assets from your business assets. So consider, in that case, an LLC. Now, I've given you 4 questions to ask yourself if you should start an LLC or form an LLC. Quick review. How much money are you making or planning to make with the business? Do you intend to bring on investors? How many owners or investors do you intend to have? What are the risks involved in your industry? Now, there are 4 more questions we want to divulge to you. So please tune into our part 2, where Shinia Lambert will be giving you 4 more questions of what to ask yourself to determine if an LLC is right for you. Thank you for tuning in. There's so much more in store, so be sure to follow and like our videos so you can know the next time we have a video for you. Thanks.